So this is an implementation of AI to play the paddles in the game Pong. I'm going to show you the demonstration first and talk through what it does, then a little bit of the code. So the game Pong is played with these two paddles, and if we simply press enter twice, it will serve and you'll see how the AI functions. So the AI is essentially going to attempt to trace the y coordinates of the ball in order to hit the ball in the middle of the paddle every time. It's only going to do this, however, when the ball is coming toward the paddle. If the ball is not coming toward the paddle, it's going to move back to the middle of the screen, and once it reaches the middle of the screen, it's going to just wait there in a kind of ready state to see which direction the ball goes when it's hit by the opponent's paddle. And as you can see, it's playing pretty well. Eventually, the speed being increased by 3% with every strike will sort of compound and cause the ball to reach a speed where the paddle simply cannot get there in time. So the paddle speed is fixed, but the ball speed is ever increasing. So we should have essentially random winners when eventually the ball speed exceeds the paddle speed. And there we go. So that's the game, and the implementation of it, as you can see, is pretty straightforward. We're in the place where we've implemented the keys for a real user to play the game. And what we've done is, first of all, allowed the real user to break out of the automatic mode. This is kind of like in the old arcade games where you'd have a demo of the game being played to try and entice you to put in your quarter. So when you actually do strike one of the correct player's keys, it'll break out of the automatic mode, and you can actually play that corresponding paddle. And the way we do that is pretty simple. We're just keeping a state in paddle itself of is bot or not. So if it is a bot, what we want to do is then move the paddle in the direction of the ball when the ball is coming toward us. So when the velocity of the ball is less than 0, in this case, it's headed toward player 1. And so player 1, we calculate the midpoint of the paddle and the midpoint of the ball. Because again, we're trying to strike at the very middle of the paddle, the middle of the ball. So if it's above, we're going to go up, and if it's below, we're going to go down. And if we're on course for the ball to directly strike the middle of the paddle, we'll do nothing. Otherwise, if the ball's not headed toward us, we're going to use similar logic with the middle of the window and simply head toward the middle of the window until we reach the middle of the window and stop and wait to see what the ball does when it starts coming back toward us. Otherwise, if we're not in a playing state or we're not a bot, we're going to have the same logic as in the original implementation where you can move the paddles yourself. That's basically it. The midpoints are being calculated, and I'm using a floor function here, so it's going essentially up 1 pixel by rounding down. And that's just in case we have, for example, any kind of odd numbered values or partial values. I believe it's pixel by pixel, so it's an integer, but again, if there was an odd number being divided by 2, just want to make sure that we get that into more or less an integer state so that we can get an exact alignment rather than some kind of floating point situation. That's it. This was fun. Thanks a lot.